Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pageant Project. My next guest is the newly crowned Miss Ohio volunteer, Brittney Putman. Brittney, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm so well. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
It's an absolute pleasure. First question I need to ask you, and I just asked Chloe, your team, this: have your feet hit the ground yet, or are you still floating on cloud nine?
Oh, absolutely not. I am still on cloud nine. Me and Chloe actually talk all the time, and we're like, is this still real? Like, is somebody going to wake us up tomorrow? We've been hitting the ground running. We had 3 photo shoots, we had a radio and TV yesterday, and now we're with you. So we've been back to back, but we don't want it to stop.
Do you have the same 2 a.m. photo shoot that Chloe was talking about?
Yes, we got crowned, and then we went to a hotel about 30 minutes afterwards, and we were up until about 3:30 in the morning getting headshots done.
Right. Have you unpacked yet? Have your
No.
feet stopped bleeding? Have you like what's it like? Because I don't think I've ever interviewed someone so soon after they've been crowned. So I asked Chloe this, but I want to ask you this as well. Let's say it's been like 3 days, 4 days. I don't even know. What has that period been like?
It's been overwhelming, but in the best way possible. I say it's such a blessing. So my bags are still packed. I was able to get them out of the car, but nothing is put away. So that's a problem for whenever I need the wardrobe to come out of the bags. Um, but it's just so awesome. I just finally this morning got done getting rid of all my Instagram and Facebook notifications. I swore that every time I got rid of one, 10 like went in its place like a good little gremlin. But again, what a blessing to be able to have that overwhelming support and have the activities to do. So as well as it might be a lot at once, I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to do it.
Why don't you run us through a little bit about who you are? Because normally I start these interviews by reading out your bio, but because it's been so close, you've just been crowned, I didn't have time to get your bio. So pretend you are talking about your own bio. Tell the people watching or listening a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a graduate of Cape Fear Community College with a dual degree in general education and paralegal technology. I transferred to The Ohio State University and I'm a senior where I'm studying human development and family science with a minor in substance misuse. I'm also currently studying for my LSAT for my law school admissions, which I will be doing next year. Very exciting. My serve initiative is called You're Important Too, advocating for children and families affected by substance abuse while reducing the stigma of addiction. I am a harm reduction advocate at the core. I was the daughter of a first responder who turned to addiction through his PTSD. And now I go across the state and the nation, providing harm reduction tools, showing everyone that no matter who, what, or where you come from, you are important too, and that your circumstances don't define you, they can inspire you.
A lot. That's I mean, the thing is, as I've begun interviewing more Miss Volunteer America contestants, I would read out the bio, and it got to a point where it's like it's taking me 5 minutes just to read through the bullet point list of everything that you do. Let me start. So I heard paralegal technology. I know what paralegals are, and I know what technology is. What's paralegal technology?
So I thought the same thing when I was doing my degree. Paralegal technology is just the whole premise of being a paralegal. So it's doing the law and ethics side, but it's also about learning the acrobatics of the Word documents, the Excel documents that you need to file within the court system within the United States. So it's making sure that we are the most prepared in every aspect of law. So I studied administration law, real estate property, civil litigation, torts, for example. So we learn how each thing needs to be exactly filed as well as what systems certain lawyers like to use. So there's some like abacus law and Westlaw and studying different avenues just to make sure that wherever we go and whatever law firm we work at, that we're mentally and physically prepared for that job.
Do you come across much use of AI in that field?
When I first started, no, but in so my associate's degree was 2 years, and the first year not at all. But that's
Right.
when my second year is when AI started to get more progressive. And so now at the Ohio State University to graduate, you have to take an AI class, actually, an AI
Oh, okay.
literacy. So it's actually really exciting. I am a firm believer in AI to an extent. I think it's very helpful, especially I can type everything that I have going on and say, can you give me an itinerary for the day? And it has saved my butt many times into making sure that I can have it looking, I screenshot it and look at my phone and be like, oh yeah, I do have that today. So it's very helpful. I would say in the paralegal world, it's not super important, mostly because you already know what you're filing and you're usually just changing the names of the parties of the civil case you're working on.
I'm fascinated with AI. I work in it a lot. I work with it every day. And I will say, when you're up at 2 a.m. trying to come up with a clever caption for your Instagram post, it's a godsend, because like I can barely see it. It's like, Chat GPT, can you write something funny for me? Because it's like I can't think of anything. But I asked because there was this case in the States, and I don't know if you heard about it, where a lawyer prepared briefs using Chat GPT, didn't check it, and it quoted a case law that didn't exist. And it went viral because the judge actually lectured him. Like, imagine like an angry parent lecturing their naughty child. And it was really funny. So I just wanted to ask, because I think AI is one of these things that everyone's going to have to get used to using. And like yourself, I'm a firm believer in it, but up to a point. I found, for example, that AI can't replicate human creativity. There's something about it, but in terms of productivity, it's absolutely huge. So do you use it on a daily basis? I'm just interested, because from my experience, and this might surprise you, most pageant girls are technophobes. Like, they know how to use their phone, but they don't know how to turn on their computer, which always fascinated me, because you guys grew up in the age of social media. But are you using like AI on a daily basis in what you do?
I wouldn't say a daily basis. I would say a weekly basis, though. Like I said,
Right.
I use it a lot for my schedule, especially with school. And then now this role is very demanding, but I also use it for grammatical errors. I type really fast and I don't like to look back at it. So I'll highlight everything I just wrote, be like, ChatGPT, can you fix this email for me, please, before I send it? And it's great. But in the law case, there actually, you reminded me, there is a case going on right now where there was a paralegal checking over the opposing counsel, and she saw almost the same thing where there was a case cited and it was a precedent, but it wasn't used in the right way, and the whole case got dismissed. So
There you
it's
go.
crazy. No, I love technology. I think it's so important, especially now, and especially as title holders. We are now in an era where social media can connect us all at the same time, which 10 years ago, we weren't able to do that. I was able to talk to Miss Virginia volunteer and Miss Mississippi volunteer just today, saying, hi, like, I'm in the class now. Can't wait to meet you guys. Where, as 10 years ago, you wouldn't meet these girls until you got to the national competition. So I think especially in pageantry, it forms new bonds to where you get to know each other better first, and it's not all super competition mode as soon as you get to nationals.
Ask you, I'm just going back to when you introduced yourself, gave us the bio, and there was so many talking points. So the paralegal
That was the short
technology,
bio, so there's
I
so
don't,
much more.
we can't be here for 5 hours, Brittney, whilst you
I
list out
know.
everything that you do. But I heard about the substance misuse, substance abuse. It sounds like you have a personal connection with that. First question I have is, we just talked about technology and law, which is pretty, I don't want to say dry, but it's very factual, right? There are steps there. That's literally what laws are. It's like, if this then that, if this then that, and you've got to quote precedent, and it's very structured. When it comes to psychology, which is another thing I'm fascinated by, I find it's very different. I mean, yes, there are some guidelines when it comes to working with people, but and I've worked with people who've been in domestic violent relationships, substance abuse, depression, anxiety, and worse. And it's a completely different field. It requires a different sort of intelligence and competence than working in the legal field might. So I'm just interested but I very rarely meet someone who has one foot in one world and one foot in the other. So how did this come into your life?
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, I grew up as the daughter of a first responder who turned to substance abuse through not activated and treated PTSD. And I had to navigate growing up and coming into an adult life, knowing how to do things. So, for example, I didn't get a credit card until I was about 20 years old because I watched my parents' financials and it always freaked me out. And I didn't know how to do it. And so I wanted to be in a role coming into pageantry as someone's big sister. That's what I say. I want to be able to make sure people have the right resources that they feel like they can be and feel important too. For me, I was also told I would never get a post secondary education. I grew up in a very low socioeconomic area and attached with that addiction based household. It just didn't seem in the cards for me. And there was a day that I was displaced due to my father's alcoholism. We were homeless. We were in a hotel that night. And I was writing my women's senior thesis for my senior year of high school. And I remember writing it at 3 a.m. the day it was due because I had procrastinated. Granted, rightfully so with the situation. And I was writing and I had an epiphany in a moment. Like, I cannot explain it. I just felt like God was talking to me and said, this is not what I want for the rest of my life. I don't want to fall into the statistic that most children are put into. You know, in 2017, 1 in 8 children grew up in a home with at least one parent battling substance abuse, and I was one of them. And so I vowed right then and there that I was going to find a way to go to college. I was going to find a way to change my trajectory of life. And when pageantry came up and it was a scholarship opportunity, as well as learning how to do new things, interpersonal skills, building on interviewing, building on connection, that really drawn me in. And for the last 4 or 5 years of my life, it has only grown. And each year I learned something so new about myself that has made me more empowered by my own story and authentically me to give to others.
If if the 2017 version of you, the one that was writing her thesis at 3 a.m. and very understandably so, I wouldn't even call it procrastinating. I can't imagine what it's like to have gone through what you went through. If the 2017 version of you saw who you are now, where you are now, would she even recognize you? Like, did she have the same dreams back in 2017, or did she even allow herself to have dreams back in 2017?
I was such a dreamer. At 8, I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to be at the Olympics. I had these huge dreams. And at 16, 17, I would say I was at one of the lowest points of my life, especially growing up in that environment. And I never felt like I would be successful, to be quite truthful. I always thought I would fall into that statistic. I thought I would stay in my little hometown forever. Not that there was anything wrong with it, but when you associate it with that many memories, you associate it with kind of a negative outlook and what you believe is failure. And I never believe in failure. I believe it's a redirection. Like, rejection is just redirection. And to me, I always wanted to be an attorney. I knew that. And the trajectory changed in that moment of an epiphany that I wanted to be the person that I didn't have. And pageantry gave me an outlet to do that. But I always say that even if this was taken away, I am still the exact same Brittney fighting for the same opportunities for those little girls and boys still going through what I went through, or even worse, or even better, because everybody's story matters. Your vulnerability can be such a superpower instead of a painful experience.
I haven't very often interviewed people who have such a distinct turning point in their lives. I feel very often change doesn't happen over a long time. It happens in a moment. Yeah, affecting the change can take time. But it's when you get to that moment of threshold where you just decide, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I quit. This isn't what's for me. I'm choosing something else. And it sounds like you had that exact moment. Can you just, if I take you back to what would be 8 years ago, can you just describe that epiphany? Like, what was that like? It must have been quite a spiritual or some sort of out of body moment. Do you remember it?
Yes and no. It's weird because I know what it felt like, but I it's hard to put into words. So I remember I
Yeah.
was sitting in the hotel bathroom on the floor, and because my computer was plugged in, and I remember there was a quote I was writing, and it said, "Women are allowed to change the world if people were to change their perspective." And it was that quote that led me to believe that perspective is so important, that no matter how you see things, you can have half full or half empty. It determines on how you're looking at it. And that's when I realized that, for a long time, I was playing victim to my situations. I was blaming my father for putting me through this. I was blaming my mom for not doing better things to get us to make us more successful. And instead, I had that mindset set change where I'm like, I am the only one who is responsible for my success.
Yeah.
If I want to change my trajectory in my future, it has to start with me. And it was that moment and that quote when writing, and it was almost my ending sentence as well. that changed who I was in that moment.
I need to ask you this. I mean, there are so many people in this day and age, victim mentality has become a thing, and everyone blames everyone else because their life isn't perfect. You, more than most, had every reason, logically, to blame other people for your situation. Why didn't you?
I would be lying if I said that I never did. In high school, like I said, I there were times where I said, "Why me? Why am I going through this? This makes no sense. This isn't fair." And I feel like a lot of people do that in life. We all have something that contributes to who we are, and this was it for me. It was when I had that epiphany and actually growing up through pageantry and through growing into being an adult and who I am now. I'm 23 now. That I realized that your vulnerability is your biggest power, that your pain can turn into your purpose, and that maybe there is a reason that you went through that. Although that is terrible, you get to be the person that you never had. You get to be the segue for people to understand and change the world that way. And I think that's such a beautiful and important sentiment that most people don't really lie into because they're so ashamed or scared that their story might get out because they're scared it determines who they are as a person.
I absolutely agree with you, but I have to ask, how did it all play out? So 2017, you have this epiphany, and you decide that you're responsible for your own life. You're not going to play victim anymore. And I'm sure, we all have lapses every now and then. But how did you go from that place to where you are now? Because I have to imagine it wasn't easy. It probably wasn't simple. There's no, idiot's guide to, a household that's got addiction and things like that, and how to get from there to being a lawyer. Most people would probably say, no, it can't be done. She's aiming too high. Be more realistic. I hate that word, but take it for what it's worth. What was that like? What's the journey over those 8 years been like?
Yeah, no, 100%. Actually, before I competed for Miss Ohio Volunteer, I was told that I was too ambitious and that I should pick an avenue of life, that I should pick whether I wanted to go to law school, whether I wanted to compete, whether I wanted to stop competing. And it hurt for a second. Then I realized, but women can be so multifaceted. There's no lane you have to choose, especially in your 20s. You're still figuring life
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
But when it came to after that epiphany, because I was in my senior year, it was actually 2020 um, that happened. I remember thinking about I have to go to college one way or another. That has to happen. And I grew up in a town that if you went to community college, people looked down on you, that it was like a negative thing. And I was talking to my grandma actually. She is the best person in the whole wide world. And she knew I wanted to go to law school. And she said, "Why don't you try paralegal first? That way you can dip your feet in the water. And if you like it, you can continue. And if you don't, you're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to do a career you don't love." And so I had looked up a local community college. I had applied. I got in, and I was able to go. And with financial aid, I graduated debt free. So that was amazing, especially going into wanting a bachelor's degree. Having your first 2 years being completely paid for and not having to worry
Yeah.
about that is such a blessing. And I was able to also use some of my scholarships within pageantry to pay that off as well. So that was the biggest blessing, and being able to graduate from Cape Fear Community College the first time with a dual degree and like 7 certifications. Graduating was one of those domino effect things that you feel like you accomplished something and now you're like, I can do more. You start believing in yourself, and you know that you broke something that no one ever had ever done. I'm also a first generation college student, so I had no one in my family go to college before me.
Yeah.
So navigating that also was crazy because I lived off campus. I was an online student because I worked full time, so that was kind of hard. But every year, like I said, it's just gotten better and better, not only in pageantry but in my life. I went to community college in North Carolina, and I graduated from there. And Ohio State was always my dream school. My family was from Ohio. And so I thought, I'll just apply for fun. I'm not going to go if I get in. I'm just going to apply. And I applied, and then I got in, and I said, oh, maybe I should go. And I prayed about it really hard, and everything lined up. I found a place here in Ohio that accepted me. My school accepted me. And I just felt this is another turning point where there's only so much you can grow in this space that you've been in for so long.
Yeah.
And so I packed up everything I knew and moved 600 miles away to Ohio, and somewhere I love and grew up partially of my life. And the rest has been history, and I've only grown since then. So I'm really excited that these things have lined up, but they only lined up because I put myself out there. I put myself out on the chance. And there's so much growth on the other side of fear. If you don't try, it will never even be a possibility.
Do you approach fear? I mean, is there anything that you're afraid of at this point? Because I often say, like, you never outrun fear. It wouldn't be brave if it didn't scare you. And so courage, to me, I know it's cliche. It's like, yeah, I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. To me, that's courage. It's not like, oh, I never feel fear. If you don't feel fear, then there's probably something wrong with you. But at this stage, what's your approach to something that scares you?
I always say that fear is having the ability to fail and continue on.
Mm,
You're going to hear a lot more no's than you will hear yes in life, and it's
yeah.
about how you react to that and continue with it. I will say my biggest fear is something I will never get over: spiders. And you being from Australia, I cannot imagine these spiders that you have there, and please keep them there. Oh, I'm definitely afraid. So that one can stay in the fear box over here. Um, if anyone ever asked me to touch a tarantula, I'm out. I'm out of the room. I'm running away. No. But when I did Ohio Volunteer, I was actually a little nervous about swimsuit. I had never competed in swimsuit before. And there's so much vulnerability in just being in a one piece or a bikini on a stage in front of six random people judging you on it. But it was so empowering after I did it. And I never expected that. I remember getting off stage and being like, oh my gosh, we just did it. That's crazy. And now I want to do it again. And I'm so excited because I get to. But you never know unless you try. And now spiders, that one again could stay there, but you won't grow and continue to be what you could be if you don't even put yourself on the line to do something.
There's a little video clip I have to send you. I sent it to Miss New Hampshire as well because she said she was terrified of spiders. There's you say you don't want to pat one. How would you like one in your mouth? That's all. I'll send
Oh
you.
no, no! It can't even be in my house or like 20 feet from me. They have the whole world to live in, and once one's in my house, you have the whole world. Why'd you choose my house? No, I don't like it. I don't like them. I don't like if they're this big. I don't like if they're this big. No, no, I don't like it. Not
Say
at
though,
all.
the only thing worse than seeing a spider on your wall is seeing it and then not being able to find it anymore.
No, yes,
Because
yes, that is the
there,
worst. Or if you're in the shower, because you're like, what am I supposed to do right now?
yeah, I had an episode where I was making myself an instant coffee, boiling the water. It was late at night, and you know, coffee is brown, and instant coffee is brown. I poured the boiling water in. Spiders are brown. I didn't realize a spider had crawled into the kettle, so I had boiled it, but then it had gone into my coffee. And then as I was drinking it, I was working at my office late at night, and I was like, there's something in my coffee. I looked down, I'd finished a whole coffee. There was a spider that big at the bottom of my coffee cup. I send this to people just to trigger them and just see what their reaction is like. And the visceral reaction, I can see it on your face. Like, people will send me vomiting emojis, people will send me burn it with fire. So it's interesting to me. But moving away from spiders,
Yeah,
I
let's do
want,
that.
yeah, sooner rather than later. Where do you see yourself in a year or 2 years? I don't want to ask longer than that because I think when you have and I think being ambitious is a good thing up to a point, right? Obviously, anything you take it too far can have negative consequences. But you're so multifaceted, multi-passionate. Where do you want to see yourself in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now?
So even last time, or this time last year, I didn't expect to be where I am now. And not just because of Miss Ohio Volunteer, but on my bucket list last year, I said that I wanted to advocate on Capitol Hill for substance misuse. and prevention, outreach, and harm reduction tools. And I always told myself, I'm not accomplished enough. I'm not intelligent enough yet. When I graduate law school, I'll finally be there. I'll finally do it. And my whole quote this year was, the worst thing people can tell you is no. That's the worst thing they can say. And so earlier this year, I had contacted a couple legislators and said, hey, what are the odds of me coming out to Washington, D.C., meeting you and speaking on this topic all by myself? I wasn't with an organization. And I told my friend, I said, they'll probably never respond. And that's okay. At least I tried. At least I took the initiative to do it. And 2 days later, Dave Taylor from Portsmouth, Ohio, reached out to me and said, let's meet in DC. And I remember screaming, crying, throwing up, like so excited, and booking a trip to DC the next day. And so I think now, even looking into next year, 2 years, or 5 years from now, I don't know. Like it's, and I don't mean that in such a cliche way, but last year, this time, I never expected the woman I would be today, let alone the things I do. There's so many things I don't plan that end up on my 2025, 2026 bucket list. This was not on my bucket list, but glory be to God. Um, I want to be happy in whatever avenues come my way. I want to make sure that whatever I choose is filling my cup so that I can fill other people's cups. And I think that's the most important thing for me. I would love to be in law school, especially within the next 5 years, hopefully graduated by then. But, my plan doesn't always go to plan. So we shall see. Whatever happens, I just want to be happy and healthy and changing the world, I guess is the best way to put that.
If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, as I say. Can I ask about, I want to ask about guidance and whether you have felt at times in your life, how did I wind up here? Because I had that moment when I went over to Miss Volunteer America in Tennessee just a couple of months ago, and I was like, hang on, how did I end up here? I'm a guy, first off, from Australia, where pageants don't really exist, and I've traveled to the other side of the world, and there were these young girls coming up with their mums wanting photos with me because they knew who I was, and I'm like, how? Like, it's not like I took a bachelor of pageant interviewing, you know what I mean, in college.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is because the whole trip was very odd for me because there were so many things that happened that almost prevented me from going. Like, even the flight from Australia to the States, I almost wasn't able to get on it because there was a mix up with my ticket. I was on my way to see my friend who won Miss Georgia USA. It was an after party. I've known her for 7 years, never gotten to meet her, obviously. And then on the way there, I drove the car into the curb because it's the wrong side of the road for me. I stripped the entire tire off and I had a flat. And I needed to get out and try to change it, but I was in my tux and it was raining. And I ended up getting helped by a homeless woman who used to be a mechanic, and then a police officer who changed the entire tire for me and then offered me wet wipes and told me where to go to get to the gas station to have. And you know what I mean? Like, you just catch yourself at moments like, I couldn't have planned this. Like, we talk so much about, oh, you got to set goals and this. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. It sets a direction. It's always good to know where you're going. But I feel like so much of it is like, it's not actually under our control. And you've talked about God multiple times. For me, this was as close to like a religious or spiritual experience that I've ever had, as silly as it seems, because it's like, I didn't plan any of this. But it's like all these obstacles God showed me, then he showed me the positive side to it. And it happened again and again and again and again. And I'm just feeling like you've had similar experiences throughout your life. So have you had that feeling of, how did I end up here? Or of guidance, and it wasn't just what you planned, but it's like, okay, I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, actually 100%. Actually, for competing for Miss Ohio Volunteers. So I had competed in the Miss America organization for such a long time. I had competed at Miss Ohio this past June. I was honored to be third runner up to my best friend who won Miss Ohio. And I was reached out to see if I wanted to do the Miss Ohio Volunteer Organization. And I kept thinking, maybe, I don't know. I need to learn more information. I want to make sure that my morals and who I am can bring to
Yeah.
the title. I don't like to take this away from anybody who is so ready for the opportunity and will put their whole heart into it, because I didn't know a lot about the volunteer organization. It's still such a new organization, still growing and within its five years. And so I had a call with the state director, Renee Brown, and I asked her, I said, I had probably thousands of questions. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have you sit here for an hour and answer each of
You
these.
interrogated her.
I was, and I got off the call and thought, wow, this feels more like me than ever. But I still wasn't sure. I was 80-20, and I just kept thinking, maybe, I don't know. So I was very 50-50. And then on the last day that the registration to compete was due, I told myself, maybe I'm not ready for it. Maybe I shouldn't do that. I really want to. I know my heart, my passions, and who I am, but maybe it's not right for me because I was so scared of something new. I was scared that I wouldn't be accepted in this organization because I had been with Miss America for such a long time. And ironically, I joined because somebody else paid my entry fee to be there. So I got a text saying, hey, somebody paid your entry fee. Would you be interested in competing? And I said, well, I feel like I can't say no now. So it was just everything led up to every time I said no, a positive experience came. It was like, yes, like every time I said no, it kept being a yes. And so I did it, and we had a rehearsal day on a Friday and the competition on Saturday. And when I tell you, like, not even from winning, it was the best pageant experience I've ever had in my entire life. I competed against 9 wonderful, inspiring, and dedicated women across this state that inspire me and to be the best Miss Ohio volunteer for our class. But I had fun with them. There was no pressure. Usually, sometimes with competitions, you're like, oh, but she looks so good. I'm never going to beat her. She was so good on social media. How am I ever going to catch up, per se? And it didn't feel like this at all. It truly felt amazing. I lent my bikini to another woman for swimsuit. Another contestant lent me her earrings for talent. Like it was one of the first times that I truly felt the sisterhood of a program being uplifted. And I
Yeah.
didn't care about the outcome of the
Yeah.
pageant. I cared about, wow, but did I really have fun? And this was the first time I competed that I also wasn't trying to get anybody to like me, per se. I didn't care what the
Yeah.
judges panel thought of me. I was authentically in everything that Brittney could give. And it was the first time that it worked out for me. So I think there's so much value in being who you are, not to please other people, but are you happy with who was on that stage? Are you happy with the goals you set that weren't just a crown and sash? And there's just so many things that I thought wouldn't happen that did in a short span of 2 months. So yeah, definitely.
If you had a good time there, then I'm thinking you're going to have a great time at nationals, because from what I saw, I've been around pageants for a while, interviewed hundreds of pageant contestants. That's the first pageant I've been to where the girls all looked like they were actually enjoying themselves. It was quite odd. They were really happy to be there. They were treated as VIPs, and it was an odd feeling. Like, you sit in the crowd and go, anyone could be crowned, and you go like, yep, she deserves it. And you don't always get that, but it was amazing to be surrounded by that many ambitious women. You probably are going to go, wow, you're like me, you're a crazy person like me. But can you back up for a second? Someone paid your entry fee? I mean, I've heard all sorts of stories, but what happened?
So it's crazy. So when Bailey Joy was Miss Ohio, it's actually really funny because her sister paid her entry fee and then she won. And then for me, I decided, I was like, maybe I shouldn't do it. And my best friend, who I mentioned, who is Miss Ohio for Miss America, I'm really close with her mom. And she knew our friendship the whole time. And she asked me, she said, God's not done with you yet. You have such a powerful story to tell. And I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And then 2 minutes later, I had a text that my entry fee was paid. And I was so remiss and so grateful because it's when somebody sees something in you and pays that forward, it's unimaginable. I kind of felt a little pressure because I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot let you down now. Wow. And I was like, I'm going to pay you back. And the only thing she said to me after that was, make sure you pay it forward.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's all I can do now is pay it forward. And maybe someday some woman will look at this interview and feel like she can do it too.
It would have been a very awkward conversation if you had decided not to enter after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. She would have been like, Brittany, really? So that's one of those things where I was saying that you can say no, but if it's meant to be for you, it will
Yeah.
happen. So
Yeah.
it just so blessed, so grateful.
Yeah, I do feel sometimes if you say no when something's meant to be, then you're just going to get keep getting hit over the head with the same message until you go, okay,
Yeah.
okay, God, I hear you now. Yes, I will do it finally. Tell me, how did you get into pageantry to begin with? I mean, you've told us about your amazing life story. When did pageantry begin to figure into it?
Yeah, so I didn't do pageantry at all as a kid. I think I did one second grade pageant at my
Okay.
little school. It was called Little Miss Rockfish, and I didn't do nothing. I had my hair chopped to here and little Shirley Temple curls. That picture, I'll have to send it to you because it's a dream. Um, but I did that, and my mom was like, "You're doing one, you're never doing any other ones," because I was such an athletic and interesting kid for sure. I did every sport under the sun. I was a very reduce, reuse, recycle kid. I was in every club. I loved being busy, clearly. And when I was 20, I decided, hey, again, like I want to achieve post secondary education. And I don't want to be told I can't do something. I want to be able to change my trajectory of life. And so I remember watching Miss America as a young kid and thinking, wow, I want to do that. But I never felt like I could because all these women were so, one, beautiful and so accomplished. And they had seven children's books posted and they were the
Yeah.
CEO of this company. And I was like, I'm never going to get there. There's no way I would ever be successful. And so there was a festival pageant called Miss Fayetteville Dogwood, and you had the opportunity if you want to go to Miss North Carolina. You didn't have to. And I said, I'm doing that because I don't want to have to go if I don't have to. And I did it. And I remember being so scared because I hadn't competed in talent in 7 years per se for dance or been on a stage. So I was deathly afraid of that. But I didn't win. But I did do talent. And I remember getting done and being like, I did the thing that scared me. Like it
Yeah.
I did it. I was in front of an audience and it's crazy because I'll look back at it now and be like, I cannot believe I danced in front of all those people with my dancing looking like that. But she did it. She was confident. Um, so I did that, and then I had thought about doing a local preliminary for the Miss North Carolina competition. Miss Moore County was in 2 weeks. And again, kind of like Miss Ohio Volunteer, I was very 50-50. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I just did talent. Like, I can do this. And then the other part of me knew I'm not like these girls. Like, I don't think I'll be successful with my background. I don't have all these resources and the affordability to be in the pageant world. And again, just like where I was saying no, as soon as I prayed about it and as soon as I said amen, it's so weird. I said amen. And the local director messaged me and said, hey, I think you should consider competing for Miss Moore County. And I said,
Oh,
this is so weird. So I competed in Miss Moore County. I had a dress rehearsal. I cried the entire dress rehearsal because I felt like, what am I doing here? This is imposter syndrome. I am not good enough to be here. I said, "We'll just," and I couldn't back out either because you had to have three girls to crown somebody, and there were only three of us. So if I backed out, nobody could win. And so I said, I have to do it. I don't have a choice. And I did it. And again, God knew something I didn't. I was able to be Miss Moore County, and I had such an amazing committee that allowed me to grow as a person through pageantry. I've learned how to do my hair and my makeup. I've learned interpersonal skills. I learned interview skills that have given me over $20,000 in scholarships. It has set me up for such a successful trajectory in and out of just pageantry. And I think that's something that so many more women need to know, that this isn't just about who looks the best, who has $16,000 to spend on wardrobe. It's about
yeah.
your message and who you are and what you bring to the table. You can never lose if you're unapologetically who you are.
It sounds like God had to drag you kicking and screaming over the finishing line. I can't believe that must have sent like chills up your spine or something. Like if you literally say amen and then it's bing, it's like, hang on. Is like is there a camera in my room somewhere? That must
No,
have been a
literally, I was
moment.
like, what is going on? And then the day I won, my face is the picture's wild. I'm like, and same with like it's just crazy that this happened twice.
Yeah.
And God clearly knows my path more than I do. Like I said, I this was not on my expectation list for the year, as although I'm so grateful for it. It's sometimes the things you don't plan end up being the
Yeah.
greatest blessings in your life. So
What when I say the word surrender, what comes to mind? Because I feel very often when you are when you're an achiever, and there's so much that you feel like you want to control. Like, I want to do this. I want to be a lawyer. I'm going to be on Capitol Hill. Like, you bang, 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 goals, 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 goals. And then at some point, I think we all realize that there's an element of grace and surrender to it as well. It's like, you might want to get there, but how about here, And, you'll
Yeah.
get there someday. It's not a denial, it's a delay. And how about I show you this detour? When I say the word surrender, I think a lot of A-type achievers go, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to give up any of my control over anything. But has that been important to your journey in terms of that element of surrender or grace, or there's something that's out of your control?
100%. So, like I said, for me, my journey to even post-secondary education and where I am as an adult hasn't been necessarily the easiest journey. And so, going to the Ohio State University, I have out-of-state tuition, even though I've lived here for the past 3 years, but I have out-of-state tuition. They will not give me in-state tuition. And it's really expensive to attend the Ohio State University. I have 1 year left, and it would be about $40,000 to finish my year. Yeah. And so I remember wanting to take a year off and I'm such a type A, like you said, and perfectionist
Yeah.
of a person. And I remember being like, but I'm not going to graduate on time. Like all my friends that I graduated high school with, they're going to graduate college and they're going to go be successful and they're going to be ahead of me. And this past year, I really learned that you're not on anyone's timeline but your own. You
Yeah.
have to surrender your expectations of where you want to be at a specific time and really lean into the positive of I get to do this. I have
Yeah.
the opportunity to do this, not the negative of, well, I have to do this. I have to get there by this time. And for some people, that may be true. But I've taken a year off from school, but that has allowed me to build things that I never expected. I built a business called Blissful Blessings LLC. It's a women's entrepreneurship Christian brand that has home decor and Christian apparel, which is really exciting. Again,
Cool.
it's something that wasn't on my bingo card last year that happened. And I wouldn't have been able to do that and give the time to it if I was in school full time. I think there's so much things to learn and grow in the unexpected and surrendering what you have
Mhm.
planned. You can still be successful in planning what you want and staying to the course, but also know that detours do happen along the way. Sometimes there's construction work, and that work is building you as a better person until you get to that goal you want to get to. If I would have graduated 2 years ago, or if I was a 2L in law school right now, I might not be as passionate about my work in substance misuse. I might have told myself, hey, I'm too busy. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't think that'll ever happen now. I'm more passionate than ever. I'm more educated than ever in that field than I was a year and a half ago, than I was 6 months ago. And it's because of taking those detours and being very happy about where I've ended up each time that I am the person I am today, which leads to the person I can be tomorrow.
An LLC. I
Yes.
don't, I don't, I don't think you mentioned this in your
No, I did
bio.
not.
Tell me a bit more, because obviously we've talked about God, which I love doing, and then I also love entrepreneurship. Obviously, I'm into pageantry, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So tell me more about this business.
Yeah, so again, it's Blissful Blessings LLC. It's a little craft business. I will go to craft fairs across the state of Ohio and I'll set up like a little pop-up shop booth, which that's really fun because it feels like I'm playing store, like when you're a little kid and you build a bunch of tents and you're like,
Lemonade
oh,
stand.
exactly. And you're like, 5 cents, please. But I get to build like my little store basically almost every other weekend when it comes to the fall season, Christmas season. And every time I have a craft market, I will also do like a nonprofit donation box where 5% of our sales will go to a specialized nonprofit. Each week we do one and they always switch up, which is really an amazing opportunity to be able to do for one. But it's still growing. I want to eventually do an online shop, but there are other priorities in life that kind of take full precedent. And it's not, I want to make sure that everything I do, I want to give 110% of myself. Some days it may be 80%. Some days I may be sleeping on the couch and it be 20%. But I want to make sure in every role that I can fulfill that it is everything that I have. I don't want to half do anything. And so, following into this role, following into being a business owner, following into being a full time student, I want to make sure all my priorities have the opportunity to get the best version of me and not give it half so then I'm
Yeah.
only half successful in that role.
Brittney, is there anything else important that you've neglected to tell me? You're not president of a country somewhere, or I mean, is it what other parts to you are there? I mean, I get that. Let me ask you this: so you're obviously multifaceted, multi-passionate. You've come from a very difficult background and you've overcome it. In terms of role models, because very often people will want to look up to someone who was where they are, look like they are, and then achieved and achieved despite where they started from. So I'm curious, did you have any role models to help guide you, or were you one of those people who said, my path is going to have to look different to everyone else's, so in some ways I'm going to have to be my own role model because no one really has trod the path that I want to tread? Or was it a combination? So like role models, yes or no?
I would say it's a combination. I will definitely say that I felt like it was a lot of I took the road less traveled
Yeah.
in my path to what I defined as success. I think success is such a terminology word that is different for everybody. I don't think it can fit one mold or one person. Success for me was getting out of that generational curse and that generational trauma. So as soon as I moved out, I felt like I accomplished that. And now everything since then is just an accolade on top of accolade of, wow, what can I do next? And there's a quote that I read once that said, maybe you're pushing your boundaries so much that you forget to see how far you've come. And I remember 2 days before the Miss Ohio volunteer competition, I had sat down because I thought, man, maybe I'm not doing enough. Like anytime I have downtime, I'm like, what else could I be doing? And I remember thinking, maybe I'm not doing enough. And I had to sit there and go, it was only a couple of years ago that you
Yeah.
were in this position and now you just went to Capitol Hill. Who does that? So I had to give myself a little bit of grace. But in terms of role models, I did have a few. I had one of my dear friends, Julia DeSario. When I was Miss Moore County, she was the outgoing Miss Sandhills because it was a dual title. And she had come from a household full of substance abuse as well. And she was a musical educator. So she was all about the arts and how that changes the addictive community.
Right.
And I remember looking at her. She had prayed with me right before my first ever interview in the pageantry world. And she said, what's meant for you will not pass you. And that has always stuck with me. And I truly believe that. But I remember her praying with me so vividly and thinking, she didn't have to take her time out of her day to do this. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know my story, but yet she believed in me.
Yeah.
And to this day, her and I still talk. She was the first person to message me after Miss Ohio volunteer. She also has broken her generational curses and trauma. She owns a business now where she does pageant content, social media content. She'll travel the U.S. and go to different title holders, and she'll go with them to
Yeah.
events and do all their content creation. She is thriving, and she worked for the Salvation Army as well for a long time. So she was doing the most good, as we would say. And I just every time I talk to her and watch her on Facebook, I'm just in awe of the woman that she's become, and we kind of
Yeah.
go back and forth on that. And now I get to be in that role. I get to be the person that she was for me. And so I'm hoping that, kind of going back to the where do I want to be in 5 years' time, that
Mm,
maybe somebody new will have an interview with you and they'll be thinking of me.
absolutely. Can I ask you? You've mentioned multiple times your background and your advocacy with substance misuse, substance abuse. I want to ask. I know it's not maybe something that we bring up very often in pageantry. It's one of those things that you might go, "Oh, should I discuss this?" And I say, "Look, if it's part of your story, you absolutely should." What do you think is the most misunderstood thing when it comes to substance abuse or substance misuse? And I'll preface this for you by saying I just wrote, well, I'm writing my beginner's guide to pageantry. A lot of it is based on mindset because I'm foremost a life coach, and I say 80% of success is psychology, only 20% is mechanics. But I put an example there and I said, people who are addicted, they don't, I mean, first off, they're still human. I don't think you can help them if you're going to judge them and say they're terrible people. We all have our flaws. But the other thing is, very often, this has been my experience. Your experience might differ. I've interviewed so many people, and I interviewed women for a mental health book, and it was very dark stuff. It was after I did that, I needed to lie down for a couple of days. But very often, I would find addicts, for want of a better word, they knew what they were doing wasn't good. and they didn't want to do it, but they couldn't help themselves. And I found that that was kind of jarring. A lot of people would judge addicts and say, oh, you're a terrible person. How could you do this? And it's like, they don't want to, but then that's the definition of addiction. And then you'll see so many celebrities like a Matthew Perry or someone, and he says like, I can't, if you put a drink in front of me, I can't help, like, you don't understand. And there was someone arguing with him about addiction. And it's like, hang on, Matthew Perry has all the money, had all the money in the world. When he's saying that he can't help it, I think we should be listening. But am I wildly off base? From your experience, what's the most misunderstood thing about substance abuse?
100%. So I had this conversation a lot, almost probably, I would say weekly. And the biggest thing that I have taken away, especially within the last few years of working within the substance misuse field, is that no one wakes up wanting to be addicted to something. No one
Yeah,
wakes up one day and goes, I think I'm going to have 20 cigarettes today and be addicted to it. That's not how it works. Usually there's an underlying issue, whether it's a mental health issue or there was a traumatic event that makes people feel something and they want to keep feeling it and to the eventually the point where they can't stop. You
yeah,
know, addiction at the end of the day is a disease. And I think that's something that we don't really focus on a lot. You know, when somebody has cancer and they're getting chemotherapy treatment, we don't judge them. But when somebody's battling substance abuse and wants to get help and rehabilitation, we judge them for it.
yeah,
And that's the same metaphor and hyperbole, but we have a stigma on those dealing with addiction. Like people who are battling this, their mothers, their fathers, their daughters, their sons, their uncles, they're people who have lived a life. They've been dancers, they've been singers, they've joked, they've laughed, they've been a baby, they've been a kid.
yeah,
They have a story. No one wanted to be that way, and I say recovery is kind of similar as well. It's like riding a bike with training wheels without for the first time. You know, you're not going to take the training wheels off and go to the end of the stop sign on your first try.
yeah,
It's very rare. So sometimes you take the training wheels off, you get to the end of the driveway, then you get to the end of the street. Sometimes you fall off and you have to go back through that process. But then you get back to the end of the driveway. You get to the end of the street again. You get around the block until eventually you're doing it so much that, sorry, my light is going crazy. Um,
okay.
Eventually you do it so much that it becomes routine and that the addiction is gone in the sense of a metaphor. The other big stigma as well is that people can't get better from addiction. I have had the privilege this past year of meeting so many incredible people in recovery. And here in Ohio, we have peer support centers, which is people with lived experience supporting those
Yeah,
currently battling addiction. I've been on QRT walks, which is called Quick Response Team, where we go door to door and we drop off hygiene kits, Narcan, accessibility, fentanyl test strips. And I had heard a story on one of them that I had gone on that one of the women, she knocked on the apartment she used to live in when she had an overdose and then she got back to being sober. She knocked on the door of the woman who lived there now and she wanted treatment. And they brought that woman to treatment that very same day in a 30-day sober housing and living, fully paid for, fully free. And she was able to get the treatment that she deserved. So it was like a full circle moment for that one woman, and then the one woman now getting help. And I think another thing. Sorry, this is like my passion project, so I could talk
yeah.
about this forever. But I this is my last comment on this part is that your actions don't have to be big to change somebody's life. They can be the most minuscule to you, but the biggest to somebody else. You never know what word, what action, what you do, how you make somebody feel is going to change the trajectory of their life.
When, I mean, that full circle story is mind blowing. I mean, I can't imagine what that must be like. When let's say someone is interacting or interfacing with someone who has an addiction issue, whether it's a parent, a loved one, a child, God forbid, I find very often they find it difficult to interact with that person because very often they're angry or they're not the nicest person to be around. But then I always feel like if they're not angry at you, they probably hate themselves because they feel like they're failing or they're ashamed or they feel a huge amount of guilt. I got to imagine it, particularly if you're a parent and you're addicted, you have to know that you're letting your entire family down, you're letting your child down. Do you have any advice for someone? Let's say there was a young girl watching this and they were in a similar situation to yourself. Is there any way that you can interact with someone who has a substance issue, an addiction issue, to bring up maybe the possibility of, hey, what you're doing is not only hurting you, it's hurting me, and maybe we could try this. Because I feel very often it's like, oh, but then you're judging me and you don't understand what it's like to be me. And there's that flip side as well. How do we sort of broach this subject with an eye to recovery? Because as we said, you don't want, no one wakes up and goes, I can't wait to be addicted to something, because you're out of control. That's the definition of it. If you could control, you wouldn't be an addict. How can we help people step back or recover from these sorts of addictions?
I think first and foremost, it's getting over that stigma of addiction. I was told when I started pageantry that I should probably change my serve initiative, that
Yeah.
it wasn't a table talk, and that's unfortunate because as it is a hard issue to talk about, it needs to be table talk, or else it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
And so, if a young girl was listening to this and she was dealing with one of her parents battling addiction, as I still am, my father's still navigating that. That's his own journey. But I would say
Yeah.
make sure you set your boundaries so that you can be the most successful version of you, but also love them anyways. Give them the opportunity to still get better, to still have the chance to be with you, but also set your boundaries to where mentally you can be in that space. And, some don't talk. Me and my father don't particularly talk, but my line is always open if he ever got better, or
Yeah.
if he's ever sober, or if he ever wants to say, hey, I love you. You never know. And I think in regards to community, we just have to get better about especially labeling people, especially when somebody's on the street, we go, oh, and I'm saying this, fully unedited. People say, "Oh, look at that crackhead. Oh, look at them. Like they're using again." But you don't know that maybe it's a homeless veteran who doesn't even utilize illicit drugs and doesn't have anywhere to go because they just got back and lost their home.
Yeah.
You never know people's story. And I think the biggest thing that we can do is lead with empathy, lead with care, and lead with the idea that you don't know what somebody's going through. And I think one of the best things also to do is sometimes it's more important to listen than to speak. And that's when you learn the most about people. And that's also the times when I learned most who I am and why I do what I do.
I do what I do with these interviews. A lot of it's listening to other people's stories, because I think everyone has a story to tell. You just reminded me of a saying: "Love your family, choose your peers." We can't choose which family we're born into. But I studied my life coaching certification under a guy called Tony Robbins, and he will have these giant seminars. And at one of these seminars, they called interventions. And there was this young woman who had a father who was addicted to drugs, and so she wasn't talking to him anymore. But she was going through a lot of pain because he was addicted, but she still loved him. And they had this discussion, and then after this discussion, she actually phoned him and had a conversation for the first time in many, many years, and just basically said, "I love you." And then he replied back saying, you don't know how much it meant to hear you say those words. And then like a week later or something like that, he passed away. And so it's really, when you tell me stories like this, it really hits hard to the core, because we don't get to choose what family we're born into. We don't get to choose our circumstances when we're young. Obviously, when you get to be an adult, you choose how to react to it. But as a child, you don't get granted that all the time. I think you, again, the bravery, the courage to make a choice to step out of that, because would have had so many excuses. People would say, that the generational curse. And you talked about labels, and I think labels can really help us or harm us. And it's like,
100%.
if you say, I am an addict, or you don't understand, I'm the daughter of an addict, so this is the best that I can be, easy for you. And it's like, whether they help us or harm us, like just what you're talking about, the labels that you've had to overcome and the story you've had to come and the people that you work with, I've got to imagine it keeps you really, really grounded, as ambitious as you are, really grounded, but then also very understanding of whatever position someone comes from, because you must have heard everything under the sun by now.
Yeah, I have a shirt that actually says lead with empathy, not judgment.
Yeah.
And even when I moved here to Ohio and I competed first time in the Miss Ohio program, I was judged for being an out-of-state girl. They didn't know who I was, they didn't know what I brought to the table. But now I'm best friends with some of the girls who didn't know who I was. And I think that that is such a thing and a quote that you can use regardless of where you are, regardless of what community you're in, regardless if you're working with people with special needs, substance abuse, mental health, lead with empathy, not judgment, because you never know what somebody's going through. You never know when your last day is.
Yeah.
You never know when somebody is planning their last day and you end up changing that trajectory for them.
Yeah.
You just don't know. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I was a girl who didn't know. I was a girl who went through some of the hardest times of my life and thought about ending it when I was 16, 17 because of the circumstances. I felt so victimized. And because I held on to hope and because I held on to the my circumstances don't define me, they can inspire me. I am where I am today. And that's what I plan to do as Miss Ohio volunteer. My goal, if I end up being Miss Volunteer America, that's amazing. But at the end of the day, it's not about the crown and sash. It's about the opportunity to amplify a mission and to meet people where
Yeah.
they are and show them they're important too, and leaving a legacy of hope that anyone feels they can be in this role as well.
You never know how important one conversation can be, do you? I met up with a friend a while ago, and I didn't know what I hadn't met her in a long time, hadn't met up with her in a long time, and then afterwards she sent me a text and said that she had been deeply suicidal, and that the time spent with me had turned that around. I didn't know that. I didn't set out to do that. I just, I like listening to people and I like being there for people, and I don't judge people because I would be the first on the line if I was going to judge. I feel very uncomfortable being asked to judge people because I say, that's not up to me, that's up to God. Like, people talk about karma, he'll get his, she'll get hers. Like, maybe, but that's not up to me. Like, I waste no time. It's very odd. Like, I don't spend time judging other people. That's not my place. But just being there for someone else. And when you said listen, it's funny because I wrote this in my first book and I said, there's 3 levels of listening. One is you don't really listen. 2 is you listen to reply, to respond. You're listening so you can come up with a witty response. But the 3rd level is you're listening to understand. And I feel very often in the conversations that you've probably had with people dealing with addiction, or I've had in the mental health space, there is nothing you can say to fix it.
No.
I think that's
your goal shouldn't be to fix it as well.
but I think a
And I
lot
know
of
that's exactly where you're going with that
a
too.
lot of people, right? They feel that, oh, but what am I going to say? Like, and it's like, no, you don't have to say anything. You have to listen and you have to empathize, which means you try and put yourself in their shoes. And so often when they feel understood, they know what the solution is. It's like, it's not that, like, if you're overweight, for example, you kind of know the solution. We've got fitness stuff everywhere, right? But you need to feel understood very often, I think, before you move towards a solution.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I could talk about this for a very long time with you. And I think it is sad, just on a final note, with this, like, being told not to talk about what you're passionate about. I think that's a huge disservice, because I think we need more people who are willing to talk about this, but also have the lived experience, because otherwise nothing gets better unless we talk about it, and the stigma doesn't decrease, it increases, because you're literally becoming part of the problem. Like, oh, we can't talk about this. So in terms of your advocacy, like, if that's even the right word for it, because I know it's your story, I don't want to dismiss it as an advocacy.
No, it still is an advocacy project. So yes.
What would the ultimate dream for it be? Like, if you could snap your fingers and be like, I want this, where would you take this out to?
Substance misuse and harm reduction efforts to be accepted across the United States and not be concerned. A lot of people are 50-50 on harm reduction efforts. Some people think that, what is the correct word for that? It gives the opportunity for people utilizing drugs to just keep doing it because there's a quick fix, and that's completely
Yeah.
wrong. We're not giving that for that opportunity. We're giving it for people to have a second chance at life, because
Yeah.
one of the big misconceptions, especially with Narcan or naloxone, is that people think just illicit drug users are using it, and that's not the case. It could be a 5-year-old who takes their mom's pills because they want to be just like mommy, or a 16-year-old
Yeah.
who thinks they're having marijuana with their friends due to peer pressure but didn't know it was laced with fentanyl, or a 66
Mm.
year old man who forgot he already took his medication for the day. And that's where that comes in. Even if illicit drug users are using it, again, no one chose to be addicted to this life.
Yeah.
It's about enable. It's not. That's what it is. Enabling. It's not about enabling people, but giving the opportunity of a second chance at life. Because again, at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have
Mm.
something that makes us who we are. Who are we to tell somebody else they don't deserve to live because they made
Yeah.
a choice?
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
I think we should all be so lucky to get second chances. I know I've been incredibly blessed in my life with some of the chances and opportunities that I've had. I mean, yes, you need to be ready to step through them, but we could only be so lucky that everyone would give us a second chance without judgment.
Yes.
So, before we get towards the final 10, my mind is kind of boggled with all the with all the things that we've been discussing. But before we get to the final 10, is there anyone that you'd like to thank or give a shout out to for supporting you along your journey?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I would love to thank the Fossen family. Like I said, my best friend who is um, Olivia Fossen. She's Miss Ohio for the Miss America organization. Like I said, her family has been the utmost respectful of who I am inside and out, and with and without a crown and sash. They fully support everything that I stand for, and I wouldn't be where I am literally without them today. And another one to my friend Caitlin Kramer and Chandler Inman and my friend Kayla, because they have all had to stay up with me really late while I do my dance routines and have to watch it when it looks the same 20 times. And I go, well, did that one look good today? And they were like, it looked the same as it did yesterday, Brittany. I don't know what's going on. Um, but, and to an extent as well, like my dad, it's crazy because people might find that wild that I say that, but I really do give him a lot of grace because again, he is still a person, and I had the pleasure of knowing my dad before the substance
Yeah,
abuse take. I
yeah,
It started when I was 8 and is now, but my dad used to be my entire hero. I wanted to be just like him. He was a firefighter, and I grew up in a firehouse, and so I remember doing 4th of July's, holding sparklers and burning myself and eating glow sticks, and my dad being a part of the poison control and being like, "Don't do that." So, but thanking my dad because not because he chose that part
yeah,
of life and to
yeah,
choose to, utilize that as a pain management system, but to thank him for even believing in me before I did, even before all this happened, not because of the woman I am, because of what he went through in his own story, but he's the reason I'm here. He's the reason I have
yeah,
life. So I would be remiss not to be thankful for that in the end. So yeah.
yeah. All right, let's go through these final 10 and try and make the mood a little bit lighter. I like the deep stuff, but we'll finish on a
Yeah,
lighter note.
sorry about that.
No, no, no. I love discussing that because I think we need to be willing to discuss it as a society more. Number one, this seems like such an abrupt segue, but number one, what is your favorite word?
Ooh, ooh, oh, bubbly. I love the word bubbly. It just puts everybody in a good mood. You can't say bubbly and be mad. It just doesn't happen. No.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh, mm. Oh, a word. I know a sound. A word would probably be. Oh my gosh, I don't really know. I've never really thought about that so much. Maybe scratch. I don't really like that word. Like saying it in a sentence to me like I'm scratching my back, cool, but just saying scratch by itself just weirds me out a little bit. I don't think I like that very much.
Number three, in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
The adrenaline of performing in front of people and sharing a message, that always gets me, whether it's in pageantry or a keynote speaker or something along that line. I'll get like little butterflies in my stomach, but knowing that something I may say may resonate with somebody to change their life, that's what is everything. There's so much positivity in being able to be a role model for somebody, and I hope I get the chance to do that this year.
What turns you off?
Being up at 3 a.m. for hair and makeup, that right there, and then having to be up for 48 hours, that'll do it. I love sleep. I'm like Princess Sleeping Beauty from Disney. If I had to pick, that's me.
And you picked pageantry.
I did. And yet I still love it. And at 2
Okay.
a.m., I'm up like doing all my research and sending emails for events. So I don't know how that all worked out.
Number 5, what sound or noise do you love?
Ooh. Ooh. Oh, I love bubble wrap. Same kind of like with my bubbly word. I love bubble wrap. Give me all of it. I'll sit there. It's like doing something with my hands. Like, you know how people with ADD and ADHD have to always be doing something? Or like people like little poppets? Give me bubble wrap. I'll sit there all day. I'll do it all
It
day.
was, I got diagnosed with ADHD last year, and I never thought I had it because I did very well in school. And I was answering the questionnaire, and it said, "Oh, did you ever have problems sitting still as a, to do things?" And I was like, "No, are you crazy?" And I realized I caught myself. It was so surreal. As I was doing this questionnaire, I was pacing all around the room because I couldn't sit still to answer it. It was kind of, oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe, yeah, okay. Anyway, what sound or noise do you hate?
I'm glad you asked. That came to my mind when you asked me about the word nails on a chalkboard, or when forks scratch the plate. It oh no! I can't. Me and my friend will go out to dinner, and she'll do it on purpose. And I'll look at her and I said, "If you do that one more time, I'm leaving right now, and you're gonna have to find a way home. I can't. It's just it does something to my brain, and I don't like it."
I can picture now a perfect house that would keep you out of it would be a house where you've got those noise and filled with spiders. You'd
Yeah,
never
no,
want to. No,
no, never.
thank you. Next, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I would like to read minds. I think. Well, I don't know. That might be a blessing and a curse at the same
Yeah,
time. But I would love to. I love to know what people are thinking, especially if I'm in an interview and be like, "Do you like my
yeah.
answer?" I know it's really good. No, and also probably reading minds. I think that's really fun. I don't really like heights that much, so I don't need to fly. But I think reading minds would be a lot of fun.
I always say if you want to read someone's mind, you might be scared because some people aren't thinking much, so you might be baffled by the silence. But anyway,
It's gonna sound
mo-
like bubble wrap.
that might be preferable actually. Number 8, what job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
I'd love to be on Broadway. I know I kind of said that earlier. I always say I dance, but I'm not a dancer. I'm not the most talented dancer in the group. I don't have straight legs. I don't have great pointed feet, but I love the passion for dance. I love the idea of telling a story, and I love Broadway musicals. I adore them, and so I would love to be even like tree number two in the background. Like I just one time. That's all I ask. I'll even be a chair. Somebody can sit. I don't care. Just let me be on the stage for one show.
What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Uh-huh. Handling the spiders. I know somebody out there's handling spiders for a living. And no, uh-uh. No, that one.
We've uncovered a real fear here. Arachnophobia, that's the word. Fear,
Yeah.
although phobia means an irrational fear, and I always think a fear of spiders is probably not irrational. It makes
Yeah,
sense. So,
they have more
I,
legs than me by a lot. And people always told me, they said, you're so much bigger than them. They're scared of you. I said, never once have I like come to a spider and it want to run away from me. It comes to attack. No, it's
no,
I'm afraid of it, and it
I,
knows.
I, I was moving to a new house here, and there was a spider that was like a funnel web, which is a giant hairy one. It's incredibly poisonous, and it was running at me with its fangs up, and I had the insecticide out, and I was spraying it. And I'm Australian. I was spraying it, and it was coated in this toxic foam, and it just kept running at me. It chased me out of the room. To this day, I don't know what happened to it. It chased me
No.
out of the room. So I don't know. Like, it's not phobia. It's like there's a spider running at me. I'm going. You can. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, final question: if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, I know heaven exists, and when I get there, I just hope God looks at me and says, "Well done, and welcome home." That's the best thing that I could hear from Him. I just hope that everything I do in life, I am a light of Him, and there's a there's a verse that says, "Be the light," and that's what I just try to do. I want to be a light for others to feel that they can be the best versions of themselves, feel hope in themselves, and still God and a sense of purpose. And there's another verse that's Esther 4:14. It says, for maybe this is which the time you were created for. And maybe this is the time that I was created for. So I hope that he was to tell me that good job and welcome home.
Well, Brittney, you definitely are a light. You
Thank
are
you.
void of light at the moment. If we keep going, I'm not going to be
I
able to
know
see you
it's
much
going darker.
longer.
I had the whole light was fully charged and now it died on me.
It is like a reminder of how long we've been talking. It's like I used to be able to see you at the beginning. Now I just feel like I'm talking to a sparkly crown. But you have an amazing story. I'm so glad I got to connect with you and talk to you. And thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much for having me. I cannot wait to connect with you even more and meet you in person. Leave the spiders at home, but meet you in person. And this is just the start of a wonderful friendship. And I'm so thankful for you to have me on today. It's really truly an honor and a blessing.
I have a video to send you, so don't thank me just yet.
Oh. Hey,
Anyway,
listen, if I don't open it for a little bit, you know why.
I'll keep you on the line for just a second whilst I hang out with the audience. But thanks everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.